With Kyrie Irving and the Brooklyn Nets currently beefing, it really opens up the possibility for that entire franchise as a whole to completely blow up. So add that, as well as the context that this team has been disappointing in the last 2 years and that Kevin Durant is soon entering his mid-30s, and the potential of Kevin Durant asking for a trade seems really high right now. So let's talk about Kevin Durant's future. Real quick, if you end up enjoying this video, then please be sure to subscribe for more NBA content. Also drop a like on this video, it only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference in how the video performs in the YouTube algorithm. Now, the first step in Kevin Durant actually leaving the Nets would be Kyrie Irving leaving the Nets. So first and foremost, what is the likelihood of that happening? So as far as Kyrie Irving's departure is concerned, it really seems as though this is something on the Nets end of things. It's not Kyrie Irving causing problems, it's the Nets organization not wanting to sign him long term. Now, there is some argument to be made that that's a completely rational decision from a franchise with Kyrie Irving's track record, and I would actually agree with that, but the point is, this is not Kyrie stirring up drama, it's just simply him asking for a max contract and the Nets not wanting to give him that. And it's not that they don't want to give him max money per year, it's just they don't want to give him that money on a long-term 5-year contract. So that has resulted in an impasse. The Brooklyn Nets do not like Kyrie Irving's unreliability, and thus they want to give him a contract that reflects the fact that he is unreliable. And Kyrie Irving doesn't want to own up to his unreliability, and he'd rather have that contract, honestly, probably because of how unreliable he is. It's important to note, though, who is the one stalling negotiations, because it points out that pretty much this whole situation is in the hands of the Brooklyn Nets, not so much Kyrie Irving. And even if giving Kyrie that long-term deal is a very risky thing to do, even more risky is letting Kevin Durant go. You really can't do that. Every report, whether it comes from the most unreliable source to Adrian Wojnarowski, every single one suggests that if Kyrie Irving is gone, so is Kevin Durant. So, when it comes to my prediction, like any actual prediction for what's going to happen going forward, I'm going to say that the Nets give Kyrie a max contract and then we're done with this. It's not just simply giving Kyrie that contract, it's also making sure you keep Kevin Durant happy. It's kind of just unfortunate. You have to bite the bullet, but it's worth it for KD. But let's say that the Nets really are that unwilling to give Kyrie that contract that they are willing to risk losing Kevin Durant, which is kind of crazy because of how good Kevin Durant is, but also I understand not wanting to pay $60 million a year to a 35-year-old Kyrie Irving who's probably going to play a third of the games. But if that happens, Kevin Durant is indeed gone. What does that really look like? What does a Kevin Durant trade really look like? So right out of the gate when discussing a trade, I need to point out this thing that should be obvious, but it's not always necessarily the case. Looking at a player as a trade asset goes beyond just the face value talent. There are many factors outside of just that player's individual capability. Age, injury, and contract, as well as, let's say, off-the-court drama, although that's not a case here, all that stuff can influence a player's trade value. For example, the trade package the Spurs got for Kawhi was rather weak, and that was in part because Pop took a lesser deal, but even the better ones that were on the table would have been relatively weak in hindsight, the reason being that Kawhi had barely played basketball in 2 seasons and he was on a 1-year contract. Even though Kawhi was one of the, at bare minimum, 10 most talented players in the league at that point, his injury history and the fact that he was on a 1-year deal brought his value down significantly lower than where his talent was. So looking at the case of Kevin Durant, he is of course coming off of this Achilles injury, and while he has still been quite good, since then he's been a little bit more injury prone than the past. Not so much major things, but just little ticky-tack things that keep him out of games. And he's also 34 years old going into this next season, season, and that is worthy of note. But what saves him from his age and potential injury concerns is that there is a huge upswing in the fact that he is on a 4-year contract. While some might potentially fear the risk of paying him $53 million when he is at the age of 38, on the other hand, that also means that he can't just leave your team as soon as you trade for him, so overall it's a positive for sure. And as a result, I don't think his trade value is that much lower than his actual talent level, but the age and injury probably brings him down like 10%. Being on a short-term deal makes teams hesitate. They don't want to get a one-and-done situation because that rarely works out. Toronto and Kawhi, as an example, is an outlier. But with all that factored in and now understanding what Kevin Durant's trade value looks like relative to his talent, what does a trade package look like for him? Well, to start off, I think you need to include a player who either is already an all-star or who is very clearly near or on his way towards being that caliber of player. That would be the starting point. And of course, being that this Nets team is going into a rebuild, it has to be a star leaning towards the younger side so they can tolerate a few years of rebuilding without going anywhere. On top of that, you're going to need another handful of other young players with upside or a treasure chest full of first-round picks. So that is the package we're looking to get back. Young star, young assets, ton of draft picks. And as for the teams that would potentially jump into this trade discussion, well, just about everybody would like their shot at Kevin Durant, but I'm going to eliminate a few teams because either they don't have the asset pool necessarily to even jump into this conversation, or they are a team that is just not at a point where trading for Kevin Durant makes much sense because they're a rebuilding team and that's not going to change. The teams that would very much like to trade for Kevin Durant but really just simply couldn't, that would be the Mavericks, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Bucks, and the Jazz. The Clippers could maybe make a Paul George 3-team swap work, but that's about it. And even then, if you're that third team and you're providing all the assets to Brooklyn, why wouldn't you just trade for Kevin Durant instead of Paul George? Like, what incentive do you have there? And I guess the Jazz could get him if they traded Donovan Mitchell, but like, I don't think they're gonna do that. I just don't. Then we can eliminate the Pistons, Rockets, Pacers, Magic, and Spurs as well. I just don't think they would trade for him due to present circumstances. There are other bad teams like the Kings or Knicks that I think would make a push for him, even if it might not be the best decision long term, so I left them in the pool of teams. So that leaves the Nets with 19 possible trade partners. Yes, that is a lot, but this is also Kevin Durant. So like I said, everybody wants in on this. So for the sake of the length of this video, I'm going to just speed run and quickly mention without too much explanation every trade package that every team available would present to the Brooklyn Nets, and then I am going to rank my top 5 best options for the Nets. Starting out east, the Hawks can offer AJ Griffin, DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, Onyeka Okongwu, and let's say 3 first-round picks. The Celtics can offer Jaylen Brown, Daniel Tice for salary reasons, Peyton Pritchard, Aaron Nesmith, and 4 first-round picks. The Hornets could do a Miles Bridges sign-and-trade, PJ Washington, Mark Williams, James Bouknight, and 3 first-round picks. For the Cavaliers, Jarrett Allen, Isaac Okoro, Colin Sexton in a sign-and-trade, and like 3 first-round picks. The Bulls could do a deal where DeMar goes to a third team for further assets. Patrick Williams, Ayo Dosunmu, Dalen Terry, and 4 first-round picks go to Brooklyn. The Heat can offer Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, Omer Yurtseven, Nikola Jovic, and 2 first-round picks. The Knicks can offer RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, Emmanuel Quickley, Cam Reddish, and 3 first-round picks. The Sixers can offer Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, Jaden Springer, Matisse Thybulle, and like 3 first rounds, provided that the Stepien rule will not interfere there because of the Harden trade. I'm not sure for sure. The Raptors can offer OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, Gary Trent Jr., and 3 first-round picks, though I think Pascal might be a little too old to categorize as a young star, so I don't know how much the Nets would be interested in that one. The Wizards can offer Denny Avdia, Rui Hachimura, Daniel Gafford, Johnny Davis, and 4 first-round round picks. There's really no star player there, so I don't think that's a great deal. Now out west, the Nuggets can offer Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and because those are two really good young players, let's just say 2 first-round picks, maybe 3. The Warriors, who would certainly be interesting to trade for him, they could offer Jonathan Kuminga, James Wiseman, Moses Moody, a Jordan Poole sign-and trade, and like 1 or 2 first-round picks, because that's already quite a bit. The Grizzlies can offer Desmond Bane, Brandon Clark, Zaire Williams, and 4 first-round picks. The Wolves could offer, honestly, at this point, I'm kind of over him, so Karl Anthony Towns, Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, and like 2 first-round picks. The Pels could offer Jonas Valanciunas, who would probably be flipped by the Nets, Dyson Daniels, Herb Jones, and Jackson Hayes, which is not much in the player department, but mixing in the Lakers and Bucks picks that the Pelicans have, they could send to Brooklyn like 8 first-round picks on top of their young players. OKC is the most interesting one to me because given their present situation, the roster is not good enough, but they have enough assets to build a great roster around what would be Kevin Durant and Shea as that dynamic duo. So this trade would just be Chet Holmgren and Josh Giddey plus like 2 bad first-round picks. You know they have plenty of them. It's certainly an interesting story to have Kevin Durant back in OKC, but also do you want to trade who you just took number 2 for him? I don't know. Like, Kevin Durant is good, but also I think Chet Holmgren is going to be quite good, and to trade a 19-year-old for a 34-year-old, that's a little steep. But also I can see the Thunder putting together a contender immediately with the assets that they have, and Kevin Durant returning home would be a very cool story. The Suns can offer a DeAndre Ayton sign-and-trade, Cam Johnson, Landry Shamet, and 3 to 4 first-round picks. The Blazers would offer an Anthony Simons sign-and-trade, Shadion Sharp, Keldon Johnson, and Keon Johnson. Keldon Johnson is on the Spurs, and 5 first-round picks. I wouldn't put it past the Kings to trade De'Aaron Fox for Kevin Durant just to waste years of both of their careers. So Fox, Davion Mitchell, and 3 firsts. That is a nightmare scenario to me, but it is indeed possible. So all of those trade packages later, here are my top 5 among them. Number 5 is actually a 3-way tie between the Blazers, Thunder, and Celtics trade packages. I really could not decide which was the best here. It's probably the Thunder just because of the real upside of Chet, but also the Celtics already have a bona fide all-star to provide, but the Blazers could provide the most first-round picks. I really can't decide. Number 4 is the Warriors trade package. It would be really fucking interesting for him to be traded back to Golden State, but with all that history and drama, I seriously doubt that's what's going to happen. Number 3 is the Suns deal, and deciding who had the best deal between the Heat and Nuggets was not easy, but I'm gonna go with the upside of Michael Porter Jr. to place the Nuggets deal at number 1 and the Heat at number 2. So if Durant is actually going to get dealt, there's an idea of what the move might actually look like. If I am a betting man, like I said, I'm expecting all this stuff to eventually get swept under the rug, and Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant will be playing for the Brooklyn Nets next season. But that is it. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video. That is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.